Good afternoon, and thank you so much on behalf of the family for being here today. Your presence is significant in the grieving process, just you being here. So on behalf of the family, thank you. To the family, I know there are classmates in the room, there are friends in the room, there are former educators and co-workers. Thank you for being here. I am so sorry on behalf of Sun Valley. I'm the pastor here at Sun Valley. We're a church that meets in 5 different locations kind of throughout the East Valley, and this is our chapel, and thanks for making your way over here today. What do you do at a funeral? And not just at a funeral, but one that makes no sense. If you're here for all the answers today, I don't have them. There are some things in life that just do not make sense. What we are going to do, what the Bible does tell us to do, we know a few things. We don't know all the things. There's a few things that we do know, and we're going to hold on to really tight today. What do you do when you come to a service like this? Number one, you cry. It's okay to cry. There's freedom to cry here today. Not just today, but in the days ahead. Talk to God. Ask Him why. Cry out to Him. He can handle it. Finally, there's an opportunity for those of us who have a relationship with God to worship Him. For some of us in the room, we may not know what that means. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. There's going to be all sorts of different emotions that we have over the next few moments, and I'm just giving you freedom to express those. Is it okay to laugh? Absolutely. There'll be some stories shared, I'm sure, that'll bring some laughter to mind, some humor. So whatever you need to do, you have the freedom to do that over the next few minutes. There's a verse in the first part of the Bible that says, behold, it's better to go to a funeral than it is to go to a party. Most of us would disagree with that. We'd rather be at a party. But the second half of that verse says, for death is the destiny of everyone. And so what today does is it causes us to remember and reflect Adrio. It also causes us to reflect on our own life and to do some evaluation of where we currently are at. And so I invite you to do that as well. I invite you to pray as we begin the service, and we invite Mom up to share a few words. Would you pray with me? Dear gracious Heavenly Father, I ask over the next few moments that you would grant peace that passes all understanding to each and every person in the room. God, it says in your word that you are a God of comfort because you knew life would be uncomfortable. And so I ask that you would comfort each and every person in the room today. God, that you would wrap your loving and gracious arms around them. I pray for those who are sharing today, speaking, give them courage, give them clarity, give them boldness. And God, for all of us, would you bring to mind the memories that we had with Adrio. I pray that for those of us in the room who've not shared certain stories with the family, that we would do that. Maybe even later on at the wake, that we would find a time to share a memory that the family may not be aware of. And God, help us to see you clearly today. Thank you for giving us all different emotions and feelings. Those are really helpful in times like this. We love you. Thank you for loving us first. In your name we pray. Amen. This time I'm going to invite Paula up. Mother, I've gotten to know Paula over the last couple of years. Paula is a significant leader here in the life of Sun Valley, one of our group leaders. So.
My Adrio. Being a mother is a true honor. My grandma Meche asked me to have a boy for her before she died. I named my boy Adrio Nicolas before I was pregnant with him. The doctor said I had a very short window to have another child. Adrio was truly a miracle under the circumstances. He was born during a troubled time in our country. He was born after 9/11. I knew from early on that he was going to be a determined boy. For example, when he was about 13 months old or so, he was put on a timeout. He turned red like a tomato with frustration. He was in a booster chair, strapped in at the waist. No, that is not child abuse, but he sure thought so. He said with his face, "I will show you, just watch me." He proceeded to fall forward and shimmied his way out of the booster seat. We captured a picture of this moment that you'll see in just a moment, of this accomplishment. Gerald and I had to go in the kitchen and laugh quietly about his accomplishment. Adrio loved Dora the Explorer so much. One day we went to the store and he saw these Dora slippers. I thought, they're pink. He said, I want them. He wore those slippers any chance he got. I told him that the slippers were too small and he wasn't having it. He cried because I was going to donate the slippers. So I decided to get a seam ripper and rip out the toes so that his toes can stick out. And he was able to get one more year of usage out of his slippers. He didn't care, but it was about him being happy. I took Adrio to Mexico about 2 times a year since he was 5 months old. Let me share a few things about his heart with you that you might not know. One day on our visit, we were in downtown Tepic, and there was a man on a skateboard, had no legs and no feet. And Adrio said, "Mom, can I go give him some money? Because he doesn't have any legs." And I said, "Sure." Another time on another visit, there would be an old lady on the corner trying to sell something, but wasn't making a whole lot and she looked sad. And Adrio would say, "Mom, can I give her some money too? Because she needs some." And I said, "Okay." My tia Julia, who turned 100 yesterday, he has always wanted to make sure she had money, and every time he'd leave, he would give her a little bit of something before he left to make sure she had enough. There were times when he would see a homeless person, he would go in and eat something, and if he couldn't finish, he'd give his leftovers and refill his pop in a glass to give it to the homeless, or he would just go and buy a meal and give it to the homeless. One day, I bought these 2 boxes of mix to make apple strudel when he was little. His dad makes a mean apple strudel that I really loved. And I said, I'd like to have 2 pieces of apple strudel. So his dad and him made apple strudel, and Shay made apple strudel. And basically, I saw my son the next day, picked him up from school, and he's probably 1st grade. And he says, "Mom, I got something for you." I said, "What's that?" He goes into his backpack. Shoved all the way at the backpack, he pulls out a Ziploc bag. It was a wad of dough. He says, "Mom, I brought you apple strudel. I know you like it." Of course, I couldn't eat it. Probably would have got sick. But it meant the world to me. It's one of my favorite stories, and showing his act of kindness for his mom. From kindergarten to 8th grade, he has always been brilliant. He started kindergarten at 4 years old. Teachers knew his gift, and over the years, they would utilize his gift. And so he was always the first one done and say, "Go help your classmates." Adrio liked to be needed. Doesn't express it or come out with it, but his love language is quality time and acts of service. Those were his love languages. And it was many examples from kindergarten to 8th grade that he was called upon to help people, and he loved it because it made him feel important. Particularly from 1st to 3rd grade, Mrs. Kuntz was his teacher, and there was a boy, his name was Ben, and he had autism, and the teacher knew he needed a little extra help, so Adrio was always finished. I think it was the best thing that teacher could have done. She really spoke volumes into his life. And Adrio would basically help him. And I remember one time during the Olympics, they had an Olympics event, and Adrio would finish, and Ben wasn't, that fast. So Mrs. Kuntz told me about this. He would run back to Ben and help him cross the finish line to complete that race. That was my son. And then years after that, he continued to help people. And just today, I heard some precious stories about I wanted my son to do that in high school, but apparently he did help some of his classmates because they're sharing those stories with me. So I'm glad that he carried on with that. I understood Adrio on many levels. Over the years, he tried to deny that we were anything alike. Heck, he looks like me. And he later confessed that we did look alike. He had a beautiful head of hair with great curls. I would tell him how handsome he was, and he would say, yeah, I get it from you and my dad. That shocked me. Many of you may know that Adrio is a nonconformist. That comes from me and his dad. We all like to do things our way. An example of that would be if a teacher said, draw a circle, he would draw a square. Yep, that was our kid. He was always taught to respect his elders, his teachers, and authorities. I won't lie. He shared his opinion with the closest to him. He would state his opinion whether we liked it or not. I thought to myself, he should be an attorney, not a pre-med student. He always wanted to have the last word, but he forgot that I was the master negotiator of the family. He would challenge me often. I wish that he would challenge me now. He was starting to master the art of negotiation. It was an honor to see and help him grow. When we went to ASU Phoenix when he went to ASU Phoenix for orientation last year, he asked to live at home. He decided not to live on campus. We got to see him blossom into an awesome young man. When I drove him to ASU Phoenix 3 weeks ago, I asked him to go with me. I needed a carpool buddy. At first he said nah, then he came back and said yes. We had 45 minutes of talk time. Drive time was always precious to me. I love talking to my kids whenever possible. What I didn't realize was that this was the last time I was going to see him walk to campus. This was the first time I got to see my baby boy go to college. I'm going to miss my little boy calling me on his way home from ASU to ask, Mom, would you like me to pick you up something to eat? I'm going to miss that clever mind of his. I will miss him saying things like, how's your day so far? You know, Mom, if you love me, you would make me something to eat. Mom, can you pull out my clothes out of the dryer? Mom, thanks for ... When I would tell him I love him, he would say, you better. How did work go? Were you able to help your clients today? He cared to ask me about my day at work. He knew how much I helped other families. I'm going to miss seeing him holding the elevator doors for strangers or opening a door for a stranger. He would typically ask a stranger, "How's your day so far?" Adrio loved his sister Mary Chase so much. They were very close. They had their sibling rivalry, just like everybody else. But at the end of the day, they were always best of friends. It gave me great pleasure to tell Mary Chase on January 12th that she was going to be a big sister. The 12th was also my sister's birthday. She was ecstatic about having her baby brother. It was my honor to be Adrio's mom. I will miss picking up his dirty socks around the living room. It was like an Easter egg hunt. I will miss his goofiness, his laughter, and his sense of humor. Until I see you again in heaven, my little man, we've had a hell of a ride on earth. Peace out, my Adrio Nicolas and puppy mom.
you do, they really say, I love you. I hear babies cry and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble builds like a lemon drops high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh star, where over the rainbow, way up high. The dreams that you dare to, why, oh why can't
Standing before you today to farewell my son, it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Putting together the right words is difficult. I'll do my best I can. I'd like to thank all of you for being here today to mourn the loss of Adrio. Adrio's intelligence, wit, and independent spirit was blended with a real love for adventure. When in Thailand, I asked Adrio what he wanted to do, and his answer was bungee jumping. In New Zealand, we base jumped by wire off the tallest building in the country. In Japan, we summited Mount Fuji. Adrio had an adventurous side that nothing knew. But what I remember most is Adrio's big smirk, his wicked sense of humor, and how much he enjoyed intellectual banter. To have lost Adrio was heartbreaking and has come as a shock to us all. Adrio's life was far too brief. I've lost my son, and with it, many of my hopes and dreams. I'd like to share a short story. Adrio learned how to drive a scooter in Thailand when he was 15. And on the first day, he was practicing basic turns in the parking lot when he got whiskey throttle. Now, whiskey throttle is when you panic and hang on to the throttle for dear life. Adrio fell off the bike, and he hung on with more strength than I realized his pencil-thin physique even possessed. And as the bike accelerated, he launched it into the metal poles that supported the garage. Fail Army would have been very proud of this entry. For the older people, just ask the younger generation on that one. About a week later, Adrio's driving skills had made some improvement, and he got cocky, and now viewed himself as a Grand Prix moto driver. He really thought he had mastered the fine art of driving a scooter, and then he hit a turn with too much speed, and was heading straight into oncoming traffic. He crashed fast and hard, and was humbled with the near-death experience. Luckily, he walked away with only a bruised ego, and the bike had some road rash. Later that night, I was reviewing the seriousness of what could have been his demise. He looked up at me with a huge smirk and calmly said two words that cracked us both up and would become the catchphrase for whenever he had adversity in his life. What were those two words? Nobody died. I wish I could hear those two words again, but I know I never will. How can we rationalize or come to peace with Adrio's suicide? That's a tough question, and I'd like to share with you how I view his passing. Many years ago, when I was about Adrio's age, I was having a deep conversation with my mother on spirituality, and I was struggling with what could be the purpose of a young child dying in the worst circumstances possible. She told me one way of looking at death is that everyone comes into this world with a lesson to learn for this lifetime, and once they have learned that lesson, they are free to move on to the next lesson, and their spiritual journey continues. I love that answer. Maybe Adrio's lesson was to learn he was loved more than he ever realized. And this ending was the only way he could truly come to fully understand that. That's the best answer I have, and I share it with the hopes that it may give others a way to come to peace with Adrio's passing. I'd like to express my heartfelt thanks for everyone being here today and for the contributions you have made in Adrio's life. Goodbye, Adrio. I hope you learned whatever lesson you needed from this lifetime. I love you, and we will all miss you tremendously.
I don't have a written prepared speech. I tried to, but it just broke my heart every time I tried. Those who know Adrio just a little bit know there's two things about him that he loves more than anything else. Number one is video games, and number two is to be right. But I'm glad that the people up here so far has been able to share with you the other sides of Adrio that other people don't know, because he is so overshadowed by his intelligence that people define him by that. And that should never be the case. I always let him know that's a gift from God. That's not who he is. And that's not how he should be defined. And as we've seen, he has such a huge heart. He cares about people, but he often tries to hide it. He's not trying to take credit for it. It's just something that he does that makes him feel good. His love language is acts of service and quality time, and he likes to do things for others, and he likes others to do things for him. He can make his own damn cheese sandwich or peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but to have mom make it for him means something to him. He can go across the street and walk right across the street in 3 minutes and get his own groceries, but if he tells me he likes something and I come back with it, that makes him happy, because it shows that we are thinking about him and that we care enough to do something that means something to him. And I'll just share a couple moments in his life that I was lucky enough to share in. When he was up to here, about 4 years old, I first got to meet him, and his brain worked faster than his mouth, about the opposite of most people, unfortunately. And he would talk so fast that we couldn't understand what he's saying. I would still listen to him, because that's what he just wanted to be heard. And the amazing thing is his sister Che could understand how to translate. I don't know how she did it. But as we bonded a little later, he had developed this thing called incoming, where he'd run around the room a little bit and then run into my arms and I'd swing him around a little. And then he developed this whole thing where he'd keep getting farther and farther, and he'd do little turns and curves. And he did that for a few years, but the darn sprouts grew up so fast that I tried to spin him and his feet were on the ground. I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to let this tradition go. And then he got a little older, and at some point he was old enough to drive a car, and it was time to let my car go, the one that you see in the picture. So I gave it to him as a present. And he didn't get his driver's license even though he was eligible. He had this car, and yet he waited 6 months to get a driver's license. Can you imagine a teenager doing that? My son is unique. Our son is unique. And at some point he finally got it and drove it and fell in love with the car, fell in love with BMWs, and then later I got my own, and he just loved making excuses to try to get a chance to drive that one. And he'd say, well, I drove it so well, why can't I drive it again? And he kept hammering on me one time, and then finally I had to go back into his room and say, you know the reason why I didn't do that? Because then it would be simple and it wouldn't mean anything anymore. And yeah, okay, I'll let you do. But he's such an amazing boy, and I just wish I had the future to share with him, because he was turning the corner to the man and starting to show the maturity we knew we were going to see from him. And we're all at a loss for, the whole world's at a loss for who he's going to be. And there is no understanding this. We can all find our own reasons and find a way to come at peace, but there is really none. We just have to lean upon God to get through this moment and pray. Whatever your spiritual faith is and wherever you are at this walk in life, go with that, and may peace be with you. And I thank the support of all my friends and family and all the love they're giving on us. Thank you.
I'm not sure on what to say that would honor the handsome, caring, loving, thoughtful, and intelligent young man that we had the privilege to watch grow over the 17 and a half years. I thought it was hard 13 years ago to say goodbye to your grandpa when he passed away. Today's even harder. We aren't supposed to be here saying goodbye to the baby of our family. Never in a million years did I think I would be attending your funeral. Instead, my thoughts were of what your future had in store for you, what it might feel like on your first day of kindergarten. Thoughts about how we would celebrate your 1st, 5th, 13th, 15th, 18th, 21st, and 30th birthdays. I wondered how you would be as a teenager who would one day have to learn to shave, drive, and get your first job. Well, I can tell you how you felt about your first job. Your first paycheck, you told me, why the hell do I have to pay taxes? I wondered what it would be like watching you graduate high school, college, and medical school as the latter was your goal. You used to joke and say, one day you will call me Dr. Romine. You didn't keep your promise, Adrio. I wondered what would be the first movie you would see at the movie theater. If I'm not mistaken, Granny and I took you to see Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And there began your love of Star Wars, my young Padawan. I wondered what sports you might play, if any. I wondered if you would be a fan of some of the same teams that I cheered for. Those that know that I won in that department. I wondered if you would get married and have kids. Some of these milestones we were privileged to watch unfold, and others we will never know how they would have turned out to be. My hope today is that you just know how much you were loved, and I hope you found the peace you were searching for. To quote something I was never comfortable hearing you say, it is what it is. Life goes on. And Adrio, it will, but it doesn't mean it will be easy. Say hi to your grandpa, my little man, and peace out for now, as I know we will meet again someday.
to fight with every day for the rest of my life. Anybody that's known my brother and I since we were kids have known that we fought. I know every sibling's fight. My brother and I fought a lot. It was over who could press the elevator button, who would have the front seat, who was first shower, who was first wakeboard. Everything was just the biggest of arguments. And as much as I hate it then, I hate more now that that's not how it's going to continue to be. I always thought that my longest friend was Lauren Yoakum from 6th grade right here. I realize now that it wasn't. It was you. Since the day you were born 17 and a half years ago, you have been my best friend. And nothing's going to change that. No, as has been mentioned, and I'm sure it was clear, Adrio had a speech impediment, and as he was a kid, nobody could ever understand what he said. And with our love of Star Wars, they would call me C-3PO to his R2-D2 because he couldn't speak for himself. He would speak, and people would just look at me and be like, what? And so then I would fill them in and do the translation. I thought so many times as to what I was going to write and what I was going to say. I realized that nothing was the right thing to say. So I figured I'd pull an Adrio and write this the day of and just come in clutch because bad. And, you know, I've been doing things for my little brother since he was a kid. He's always been lazy or didn't know how to do it. And people have asked me this week how I've been able to hold myself together and how I've been able to do well, and it's because he's my baby brother. I'm his big sister, and that's gonna happen until the end. I'm gonna continue doing shit for him, even when he's capable of doing it himself. He was lazy, and I'm lucky, because it gave us the opportunity to make him that mac and cheese last week. We were in Oregon visiting our Oma, and our Oma said, Adrio, I know you're not gonna eat the salad, are you gonna eat? He was like, yeah. And she's like, well, do you want us to make you mac and cheese? He said, yeah. If people don't make my food, I normally don't eat. So I went and I made him microwave mac and cheese. And I've always been an optimist. And, you know, that's one of the silver linings, is he was lazy, but we were lucky. And on that same note, I heard the quote that there's a different you in every single person's mind. And our family got to see a side of Adrio that the rest of you guys probably didn't see, but I would have rather been on the opposite end, seeing the kind and loving man that we raised him to be. You know, as awful as it is that we're all here together, if it weren't for this, then I wouldn't hear these amazing and beautiful moments that you all have privileged me of knowing. One of his friends online reached out to me and was telling me that if I was in Vegas and I had to bet my last dollar, I'd bet it on him. And I say that I don't care how broke I am, or when it is, or where it is, I will put every last dollar on my brother. I love you. I love you. I love you a million times. I would always tell my brother every year, or every day, I love you. And he'd say, you better. And now this is me telling him that he better know how much we did love him.
Kind of a wreck after hearing that. That was a really good speech. Adrio, man. Adrio was unique. He understood life on a deeper meaning than most people ever do in their entire lives. He was a realist. Always saw the cup not as half full or half empty, just simply half a cup. It meant he saw that the world was what it was, ugly, full of lies. But even as he saw that, he continued on. There were so many stories, countless occasions. Adrio displayed his kindness to not only his friends, but even my family members who he barely knew. He made genuine friends in his life who saw him for how he was, a kind, supportive, and brilliant human being. He was always there for us, and when he needed us most, we weren't there for him. And for that, we can feel guilty or angry, but none of that will change the past. What has happened has happened. We can only learn and try to move on. Adrio told me one of his last things he said to me actually was that he never made the same mistake twice. Let's take a page out of his book and learn. Be there for our friends that are still here today, suffering from the pain of loss, his loss, and be there together for each other and go stronger from this. We can change the world, our world, from the ugly truth it is to one of friendship or love. I wish I had done that sooner for Adrio. Adrio, man, I wish you the best. I always looked up to you, even though you were younger than me. I know you're in a better place, up in heaven by God's side, watching over us from above. And even though your physical being has left us, we know you will always be by our side in spirit. I miss you, Adrio. We all miss you.
I'm Adrio's uncle, and I was lucky enough to be the one that he played video games with. And there's nothing I wouldn't do for him, and there's one last thing. As an uncle that I want to do for him is to give the remainder of my time to one of his best friends so that she has a voice today. John.
Dear Adrio, hey loser, I miss you. I hate that right now I had to write this for you. I wish this was a joke. I really do, because it's not funny. You always did have a dark humor, and I'm really wishing this was one of your twisted pranks. Since it's not, I hope you can hear me, and I know you are because you love to brag about your great hearing. I want to thank you. Thank you for being a great friend. Thank you for walking with me to the downtown bakery during 6th period in high school. You never took a bite first until I did. It was really annoying. Thank you for also not getting mad at me when I forgot you don't eat spicy food and I bought you hot Cheeto elotes. So I guess thanks for putting up with my dumb self too. Thank you for letting me pretend that I was a cloud expert when we carpooled. You're one of the few people that won't make fun of me when I would point out a cumulonimbus or something in the sky. Thank you for being a stubborn head and argue with me if a teal car was more green or blue. You always said blue because it was your favorite color, and I said teal. And so you're really annoying for debating on me on literally everything. It didn't help that your photographic memory would go against my memory loss, basically. most of all, thank you for making me value friendships. You once told me that without knowing you or not, I helped you become a better student and a better person. You didn't need to be better. But hearing that made me ever more determined to just continue to show love and compassion to everyone. I will always cherish the memories we made. You were witty and so considerate, and I miss you. Now, every time I see a cumulonimbus in the sky, or a teal car, just know you'll be in my thoughts. You're so stupid, Vanilla Bean. You wanted your last words for me to be, or you wanted your last words to me to be, "This too shall pass." Well, I'm sorry that's not happening because our friendship will never pass. You'll always be in our hearts. We love you, Adrio. Love, Fahut.